Welcome to Deployment Diaries, a podcast brought to you by Dogs on Deployment. I'm your host, Kylee O'Ney, the Marketing and Communications Director for Dogs on Deployment, and I am thrilled to have you join us today. Deployment Diaries is dedicated to sharing the heartfelt stories of military members and their beloved pets. In each episode, we dive into the personal experiences of those who have benefited from our Hero Pet Boarding Network, highlighting the incredible bond between service members and their pets and the generous volunteers who make it all possible. Whether you're a military member, a pet lover, or a supporter of our mission, we hope these stories inspire and touch your heart. Today we have a special guest, Michael McMackins, who is a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army and recently used our Hero Pet Boarding Network for his Dalmatian, Nova. So sit back, relax, and enjoy as we explore the wonderful world of dogs on deployment through the eyes of those who live it every day. Welcome to Deployment Diaries. Hi, Michael. Thank you so much for coming and joining us today. Can't wait to hear about Nova. But before we get into that sweet little dog that you have, would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself and your military background?
Sure. I am Michael McMackins. I'm a staff sergeant in the U.S. Army, and I've been in for about 10 years now. And I'm a medic who has been with infantry for the past 10 years. So that's been fun. That's really about it. That was my third deployment. I've been on 3 deployments now.
Awesome. Well, welcome back. I'm sure you're happy to have you home, but I'm sure Nova is even more excited that you're home. Can you tell us a little bit about Nova and how she came into your life? You mentioned that you've been deployed 3 times. Is this her first deployment with you?
Yes, this was her first time being deployed, or being apart from me and this was a 9-month deployment, so it was a long one. But I got her back in October of 2023, and I got her when she was only 3 months old, I believe, which was really young. I was not supposed to get her that early, but I breed her, and ever since then, me and her have been sleeping on the couch together or in the bed together.
That's awesome. I think I saw Nova. Do you have her with her today?
Yes, I do. Come here, pup.
Oh, we love to see the puppies. Hi, Nova. Oh my gosh, she's beautiful.
Definitely bigger than when I left her.
I can imagine. So you said that you got her about 3 months old. About how old was she when you left?
She was about to turn 1.
Oh, sweet baby.
I
So
I think she was 10 years old.
she's adorable. So you mentioned that this was not your first deployment yourself personally, but your first for Nova being a part of your life. How did you first learn about dogs on deployment?
One of my friends actually had been deployed, and she had 2 dogs at the time, and she told me about dogs on deployment, which I never heard of for my other 2 deployments. And then it was really simple. I just logged in and put her information in, and then I think I found a border within a week of looking through people and different facilities.
Awesome. So you said that you mentioned looking through a couple of different borders as options. You mentioned that you looked through a couple of different facilities. What really led you towards wanting to utilize dogs on deployment versus other boarding options that are available?
Definitely like the familiarness of them and the military. Everyone else didn't really understand fully what a deployment was or what kind of toll that takes on the soldiers and the pets that we have. And Dogs on Deployment was just full of information that I could use for being away, and then also setting up with borders um, that would send pictures and videos of the dog while she was gone. Come here, pup.
Mhm.
You're fine.
Well, you
Sorry.
mentioned that you were looking for a boarder that would be willing to send photos and videos to you of Nova while you were gone. Did that actually happen? And how frequent was that? If it was happening, how often did you receive those?
It definitely was happening, and it would happen whenever I asked for it, which would be maybe every other week. I would ask for something, but even times like for holidays, they would. I remember one St. Patrick's Day, they gave her like a little treat out of a little like St. Patrick's Day beer mug or something. It was hilarious.
Oh,
But yeah, so every holiday for sure, I would get something unsolicited.
that's wonderful. And How did that make you feel? I know you said sometimes the holidays it wasn't prompted, they just sent them to you. Other times you asked, but when those videos and photos were being received, how did that make you feel with being so far away from Nova?
Oh man, it made me miss her a lot, but it also made me power through the deployment. Honestly, it helped a lot to know that she was doing good and like people were taking care of her. And every video she looked happy and everything. So um, it helped out a lot emotionally for sure.
So glad to hear that your boarder that you utilized was able to send those to you. Were there any specific challenges or concerns that you had before using Dogs on Deployment's Hero Pet Boarding Network for Nova?
Um, Being that Nova's a Dalmatian, she's extremely high energy. So I wasn't sure if I would find someone that would either be able to deal with her energy or like leave her in a kennel for too long. Like some boarding facilities leave them in kennels for hours out of the day. But I was able to find someone that didn't do that, and it was a whole free range area that she had at least like 16 hours outside or something, some crazy number. So that was like perfect for her. But that was my main deployment because she is a little bit much.
So you mentioned that with Nova being Dalmatian, she's very high energy, and that was something you were looking for when you were trying to figure out the best boarding option for her. How did those conversations go with the potential boarder that you ended up selecting? How there's something that Dogs on Deployment tries to encourage is, of course, open communication, both from the boarder as well as the service member. And how did that process work for you with screening the boarders and ultimately selecting the boarder that you did?
I really looked at if they had anything about them being in the boarding service for at least 5 years to understand, or someone that maybe studied animals or something. And then I would just straight up ask, do you understand that she's a full bred or a purebred Dalmatian and like what that means? And some people didn't. And it was fine because I can just educate them. But also, I found a couple boarders that had a Dalmatian of their own and they were cool, but we just couldn't. It was a 9 month deployment. So they didn't work out because they couldn't watch for that long. But ultimately, Mr. Paul, the person I ended up boarding her with, has had Dalmatians in the past and understood and actually was giving me information I didn't even know about Dalmatians. So that was perfect. And after that, I was like, oh, yeah, we're definitely going to set this one up then.
That's awesome. It's crazy that there's so many options available, and we're Dogs on Deployment's really happy to hear that you found someone that was making the process easier for you, but also someone who would really understand Nova. It's wonderful to hear. There's so many options out there. So, in what ways, you said Mr. Paul was telling you things about Nova and being a Dalmatian that you didn't know, and that was a really positive experience for you. So, in what ways do you feel that Dogs on Deployment would be positive experiences for other service members and their families when it comes to care for their pets while they're serving their country?
Oh, okay. Well, firstly, they can screen whoever they want. And if they don't feel comfortable with the person, that's completely fine. There was so many people I could choose from when I was looking for someone. Um, so whatever brings a service member peace of mind, they'll definitely find it. There's way more than enough different facilities or people just to choose from with it.
And what advice would you give other service members who may be considering using Dogs on deployments for their pets? I know you just mentioned that there's tons of options out there for them, but do you have any other advice as far as finding a boarder, the process, any of it?
Just take your time if you can. I know deployments sometimes happen last minute, like mine, because kind of was I was given a 2 month notice about it, which is crazy. But take your time with finding someone and actually talking to the people and figuring out. Some people will come even and pick up your dog and then bring it to another state if you need to or something like that. You just got to talk to them and figure it out. So like because my concern was distance for a second. I wasn't sure how far I would be able to drive to drop her off, but like I said, there are some people in Tennessee that were like, "Hey, we're up here right in New York right now. We can actually grab her and bring her down when we go home in 2 weeks or something like that." Um, so just take your time, as much time as you can, and actually screen the people that you're thinking about choosing for your dog, and then everything else is very simple and very straightforward.
Wonderful. Well, I'm so happy to hear too that Dogs on Deployment's community is even it's gonna sound crazy coming from someone who works for them, but I'm, still a little bit I'm under a year of being with Dogs on Deployment myself, and it's still something that makes me so excited to hear that you as service members continue to experience the amazing community. Just happy to hear that Dogs on Deployment's community of those that really genuinely want to help your pets rallied around you and that you continue to experience those things. So that being said, you're talking so highly about people are willing to help and take your time. Would you remotely consider using Dogs on Deployment again in the future if you were to need that help with Nova?
Oh, absolutely. I honestly am not going to use anyone else. Um, Straight up, if I get deployed again, which it happens, it's probably going to happen in the next couple of years. I'm definitely going to log into Dogs on Deployment and find someone else.
Awesome. So glad to hear that. And please also too, since I have you today, I wanted to make sure that we communicate. You have 2 months notice for this past deployment. If for any reason in the future you get even less notice, because unfortunately, you know, I understand it happens. Dogs on deployment gets it. Sometimes you get a couple months, sometimes you get maybe a week if you're lucky. So that being said, if that is to ever happen, please feel free to reach out to Dogs on Deployment directly. We are always more than happy to work with you. Our main priority is making sure that your pets are not having to be surrendered to shelters. So if you need a quick turnaround, we can fast track your application to get you into our website. But of course, since you're already there, if you're in a predicament where your class boarder isn't available and you're having troubles finding someone quickly, please reach out to us because there are actions that we can take to fast track that and get Nova replaced with a home as quickly as possible. Some of those things we can post her on social media, and we've even been known to put out press releases in local areas to try to appeal to those. I know you mentioned you were looking for a boarder with a couple years experience. If a situation arises where that's not available, we do have a wonderful community of people that will hear about your need. And even though they might not have years of experience as a boarder, there's people out there that have experience with pets that are willing to step up when that call comes.
For sure. That's awesome. Thank you.
Of course. Is there anything else about your experience with boarding Nova and Dogs on Deployment that you wish to share?
It was just awesome. The person that I used, Mr. Paul, he was literally the best person ever, and I still talk to him every now and then, just check in with him. He was watching actually my friend's dog too while I was over there, so he even made an exception to board Nova and this dog that she grew up with. His name is Simba, but he boarded them together in the same area, even though he was technically like overstock at the time, but he was able to put them into their own giant kennel together when they were sleeping, and then they'd be out playing all the whole 9 months together. It was awesome.
Sounds like
So
she had
shout out. Oh,
That's awesome. Sounds like she had a great time while you were gone. I'm sure she missed you terribly, but that's amazing that here it is. Your boarder was able to take on yet another military pet and one that Nova knows. And I'm sure that made that transition for Nova probably a little bit easier.
so much. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for talking with me today and for meeting Nova. We're really happy to hear that you had such a positive experience with Dogs on Deployment.
For sure. Thank you.
Hey there, it's Elisa Johnson, president of Dogs on Deployment. As a veteran and a pet owner, I know firsthand the challenges military members face, especially when it comes to pet ownership during deployment, training, or PCS moves overseas. That's why I created Dogs on Deployment. We are the only free-to-use nationwide online network of volunteer pet boarders willing to care for military member pets during their service commitments. We have one goal: to prevent unnecessary pet relinquishment by service members due to their service commitments. No military member should have to give up their beloved pet when duty calls. But we have one problem. We need you in order to help us achieve mission success. If you support the troops and love animals, you can sign up to volunteer to board one of our pets in need or make a donation online to support our Hero Pet Boarding Network. Don't wait. Visit dogsondeployment.org to get started. And don't forget to follow us on social media too. And hey, just because we're called Dogs on Deployment doesn't mean we don't help cats too. I've got dogs, cats, and even chickens, and through our network, we've helped every type of pet. So don't wait. Visit dogsondeployment.org today to support your troops and their pets.